So football's finally over, and the evil empire known as the Kansas City Chiefs have been stopped. Thank God. So you know what that means? You know what time it is? It's time for
flags in the air. Boogity, boogity, boogity. Let's go racing, boys.
That's right. It's time for NASCAR. And going back, looking at the 2024 season, I thought it was a pretty good season.
Joey Logano steps into history. He's a 3-time Cup Series champion.
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the fuck is that?
Joey Logano is now a 3-time NASCAR Cup Series champion. That puts him in league with Lee Petty, Cale Yarborough, Tony Stewart, and Darrell Waltrip. Now, Joey Logano's fine enough. Like, he's got the most punchable face in NASCAR, but he's a decent driver. My problem is not with Joey Logano being the one who won the championship. My problem is with the playoffs. But that's a conversation for another time. So, instead of focusing on that just awfulness, why don't we focus on some other things that happened in the 2024 NASCAR season? To start the season, God proved he hated NASCAR by making it rain the day of the Daytona 500, pushing it into a Monday where no one could watch because, we all had to go to work and, be productive members of society. So that was a great start. The next wild thing that happened was the Ambetter Health 400 at Atlanta. Yes, I'm going to name all these races. The names of the races are absurd. But at the Atlanta race, Daniel Suarez narrowly beat Ryan Blaney and Kyle Busch at the line in a finish that's almost as close as I am to just having a complete and utter mental breakdown. Next thing I want to talk about is the tires at Bristol during the spring race for the Food City 500. The tires at Bristol fell apart faster than Joe Biden's re-election campaign after the debate. They were just falling apart. The track was green, as I remember it, was just eating the tires up. And at one point during that race, Kyle Larson asked his crew chief, Cliff Daniels, hey, how fast do I need to be running to save these tires? And Clint Boyer, on the call for Fox, had the same reaction that I have when my wife says we can go to the Chinese buffet.
Tires. That's exactly what I wanted to hear out of somebody's mouth. Kyle?
Clint, you and I are on the same speed. At the Toyota Owners 400 at Richmond, we had the whole race, and Martin Truex Jr. was dominating, led over 200 of the 400 laps. And at the end, Kyle Larson pulled a John Hunter Nemechek and spun out, throwing the race to a final restart. Because, of course, it's NASCAR anymore. Got to have the crazy restart at the end to make it all entertaining. So Denny Hamlin was lined up on the inside. Martin Truex Jr. was on the outside. And Denny Hamlin 100% jumped that restart. Was hammered down before they even got to the restart line. But he got away with it. So then he sends it into turn one, gets the lead, passes Martin Truex Jr. Truex is upset because he feels like he gets run up into the wall, puts him in a bad spot. He gets past a couple other times, eventually comes side by side with Kyle Larson at the end of the race, and they're side by side, knocking each other, just knocking the absolute crap out of each other. And race is finished, and Martin Truex Jr. just decides he wants to continue playing bumper cars after the race. He runs into Kyle Larson for running him up the track and for causing the spin and, being a dum-dum and, causing all this. And then runs into the back of Denny Hamlin, full send into the back of Denny Hamlin. So I have a suggestion, and I know this isn't going to help Martin Truex Jr. because he's retired, because he's old, old enough that when I was a kid, he was racing. How about this? How about green means fucking go? Green means go. Green means go. Hammer down. You see the green flag? That means foot to the floor. Let's go. Anywho. So at the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro, Kyle Busch just completely sent Ricky Stenhouse Jr. just full send, threw him into the wall. And, it's Ricky Stenhouse Jr. I'm sure he can drive a car better than me. But just ends his day on lap number 2 of the main race. And so Ricky spent the next, 198 laps coming up with the master plan, big brain master plan here. And that plan was to wait for Kyle Busch by the haulers, walk up to him, have a conversation with them, and then throw the punch. If you're going to punch him, just punch him. So this starts a whole, good old hockey-style line brawl. Crew members throwing each other off the back of the hauler. Like, what was it, Big Country was that dude's name? Just absolutely bodying people off the hauler. The most entertaining part of that race happened after the race, because what was even better was Joey Logano was being interviewed on the front stretch after winning it, but no one cared because there was this fight going on, further proving that no one likes Joey Logano. And what's further about this fight is that after the fight, NASCAR used it for all the promotionals. NASCAR always does that. There's a fight or a shove or something. They put in all the ads. They put in all the commercials. But then they fined Ricky Stenhouse Jr. $75,000. Like, it was so absurd that Daniel Suarez actually made a great tweet along the lines of, you're using this for promotional material, but he's getting fined. So is it good or bad? I can't believe I just agreed with Daniel Suarez. That brings us on to Racing Christmas. And Racing Christmas this year was canceled early in the morning. So we have Monaco to start off the day, and Sergio Perez, being Sergio Perez, just being, big brain, dumb, tries to make a pass at Monaco, which is a big no-no, and just completely shatters the car, red flags it, and then it's Monaco. We all know what it's going to be. It was a parade. And that is supposed to be the pinnacle of motorsport. Which brings us to the 500, which was rain delayed because, again, God hates all of us anymore. So Indy 500 was delayed, and why that matters to NASCAR is that Kyle Larson was trying the double. He was going to run the Indy 500, get on the helicopter, get on the plane, go to Charlotte, and run the Coke 600. Great. Tony Stewart did back in the day. Going to try it now. But again, God hates NASCAR, and so the 500 was delayed. Kyle runs the 500, gets a speeding penalty down the pit, ruins his whole day at the Indy 500, gets on the plane, goes to Charlotte. By that time, the race had started in Charlotte, so Kyle missed the start, which means he doesn't get any points and misses, I believe, that in and of itself negated his playoff eligibility technically, but NASCAR gives waivers like, drug dealers give out samples. I don't know. Do drug dealers give out samples? I have no clue. Anywho, he gets there too late to even get in the car because by the time he gets there, it's raining in Charlotte now, and the race is called off after 200-something laps. Christmas is ruined, and everything is terrible. Around this time, Stewart-Haas announced their closing, and I, for one, am shocked that Stewart-Haas closed before the Haas F1 team, because at least Stewart-Haas Racing has A1 races and B1 championships, and C was good, whereas the Haas F1 team is just complete and other shit. Moving right along. So the Ally 400 at Nashville went to 5 overtimes after a red flag.
I hurt myself today.
So Joey Logano, being Joey Logano, wins this race because it's just terrible. This just reinforces the fact that NASCAR has jumped the shark, and they push for these Game 7 moments, which are terrible. And it's not another sport. It's not a stick and ball sport. It's motor racing. Reinforces the fact that NASCAR has fully jumped the shark and is basically a reality TV show. A less entertaining reality TV show. Brings us on to the Grant Park 165. God, these names are terrible. The Chicago Street Race. So, once again, because Chicago's terrible and everything that comes from Chicago is just absolutely terrible, the race was red flagged due to the weather, and they have to shorten their race, and it's just all a farce. And here's my thought. Like, okay, they shortened the race because it was going to be dark and they couldn't see. It's not like you're going to make a driver like Josh Berry any better. He's still going to be an idiot. Poor Josh Berry. This brings us on to the Brickyard 400, which was supposed to start on NBC, but the start of the race was moved to USA Network because the Durban chief announced he would not seek re-election. The race was moved back to NBC before going back to USA Network again, so the news could debate if Joe Biden was actually still alive. At that point, during the second to last restart, Brad Keselowski runs out of gas as he's coming to the green. He pulls off, follows the pace car down pit road. That means Kyle Larson moves up into his spot right next to Ryan Blaney. And just like the Richmond race, green doesn't mean go in NASCAR anymore. So Kyle Larson gets a better jump than Ryan Blaney, sends it into turn one with the lead. The field crashes behind them. Kyle Larson's in the lead. And let's just say Ryan Blaney didn't take that very well.
No way that he gets to jump up a row and I get, because someone runs that again. It ain't over. Over? I'm on the top. You gonna win from the top? Give it to Golden Boy. Son of a...
Anyway, Kyle Larson won that race. At the Coke 600 at Richmond, this is the second Richmond race. Richmond had one this year. Richmond was cooking this year. Austin Dillon was up front towards the end, and during the final restart, he's starting beside Joey Logano. Joey gets the lead going after the restart, has the lead going into the final corner of the race, and that's when Austin Dillon said, "Hey, hold my beer," and just sends it through Joey Logano, puts him into the wall, crashes him out. Austin Dillon loses a bunch of speed. Denny Hamlin comes up besides him, and Austin Dillon says, "Well, I've already done one. Let me do another one." Right rear hooks Denny Hamlin into the wall, crashes him out, and wins the race. So that's all fine and dandy until later in the week, NASCAR decides that they're going to let the win stand, but it won't count towards playoff eligibility. This just goes to prove that the playoffs are dumb. Finally, not only was the championship fucking dumb because it's the playoffs, and why do you have a playoff system in motorsports? And Joey Logano's terrible, and he won that race, and so I automatically don't write that race. But the derp infected the pace car that crashed into the pit lane wall. And here I thought Danica Patrick had left us years ago.